Welcome to Loaners, the channel that talks about all things student loans. I'm Demi.
And I'm Tosh.
With almost $200,000 of student loan debt combined, we've learned a thing or two about paying down our student loans. And now we're here to set you up for financial success.
So be sure to subscribe and look out for our videos every Monday.
So what are we talking about today?
Next. We are talking about Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Bam!
Good job. It took us a while to get that one down. So after 3 hours of being on the phone, phone-led, and this program, we decided that we needed to talk about what's currently happening. Honestly, because it's most relevant to our lives. There are other loan forgiveness programs, but we're just going to talk about this one today for one very special reason.
It's all part of the pandemic and the package that the Biden administration has technically approved.
Yeah, basically. So, after spending so much time on hold, I had this really nice lady over the phone really help me out because there was just like a sprinkle of information on the studentfed.gov website, and it wasn't really helpful of talking about what the Biden administration waiver is looking like for this program right now. So since I found out all this information, I'm going to save you the 3-hour hold and help you figure out if this is even a program worth exploring further. So just a brief overview of what the program looked like prior to this waiver.
Yeah, so prior to this waiver, before the COVID relief, in order to even begin the student loan forgiveness program, this particular one, you needed to consolidate your loan with the PSLF servicer, and then which I want you to all know that currently at this moment it's actually Fed Loan who is that servicer. And so then you had to, after consolidating your loan with the servicer, make 120 payments throughout a 10-year duration. So even if you made payments previously, those payments do not count towards this program unless you actually consolidate with PSLF. Does that make sense?
It does. And then another thing to remember is that when you're in this program, you need to make qualified repayments, or you need to be on a qualified repayment plan. So what that really means is there are around like 4 or actually more variations of repayment plans, but there are only 2 repayment plans that are qualified payments under this program, and that is the 10-year standard and then the income driven. So the 10-year standard is exactly what it sounds like. You pay 10 years, the exact same amount. So it makes absolutely no sense that that's a qualification because you need to pay 10 years in this program. Department of Education, please explain. But the other income, the other payment, the income-driven payment plan, that's the one that is probably most likely going to be utilized. And you just need to make sure that you're on that payment plan, because if you're on any of the other payment plans, guess what? Those payments don't count.
Yeah, exactly. But the really great thing and the cool thing that's happening now through this administration is that their COVID waiver now has that you technically could use your previous payments prior to consolidation for qualifying as those qualified payments.
Exactly. So up until October 31st of 2022, aka this year, this October 31st, by Halloween, you can apply for this waiver, and it would essentially give you credit for all those payments you've made outside the program. So if you've been on any other payment plan and have used those, if you've never consolidated your loans and applied for the public service loan forgiveness program, those would all qualify. So what that really means is if you've been working at a not-for-profit, for example, say for 5 years, and you never applied for this program, and you stayed with your original servicer, but for those 5 years, you've made 12 on-time payments, those payments could count towards your student loan forgiveness under this waiver. Now, you still need to make 10 years worth of monthly payments to get the full forgiveness. And you still technically need to consolidate your loans and apply for this program by October 31st, 2022. I will repeat myself because that is an important day. If you are going to use this waiver, that is the last day to do it. Please don't wait for the last month because it does take some time. But you will be able to get this forgiveness, hopefully, by utilizing this waiver and not really wasting all of those years that you've made payments on your own in a different servicer.
Yeah, definitely. Is there any way that you can give us a true solid example of what this would look like for maybe someone as myself who works at a nonprofit and is actually eligible for this particular program of loan forgiveness?
Yeah, so that's a great example. Like, you've been working at a not-for-profit for how many years?
For about, I think about 4 to 5 years now.
4 or 5 years. And then have you been paying that whole entire time?
The whole entire time.
Okay. So under the previous guidelines, those 4 or 5 years that you've been paying don't count for loan forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But with this waiver, if you've made 4 or 5 years of on-time monthly payments, and that does not include any additional payments, right? So say you've been making consistently, say your payment is $100, and even through this deferment time, you've been paying $100, and then you've been tacking on an extra $25. Those extra $25 don't count. But every monthly payment of $100 you've been making for 4 to 5 years would count towards this waiver. Now, what you would do is you would go to the public service loan forgiveness program, and you would fill out a employer qualified form to make sure that your employer is qualified as a not-for-profit. You know, if it's a true not-for-profit, it should be qualified. And then in that process, you get started, and you would have to then consolidate your loans. And through the waiver, they would go in and say, okay, we see all these monthly payments that you've made, you know, these 60 monthly payments you've made. We're going to count those towards your 120 monthly payments. So under this new program, you would then have to be under the same guidelines of, you know, either 10-year standard or the income driven. And you would pay off the rest of your 5 years. And so it's nice because, you know, like we said earlier, if you had done this without the waiver and you said, I really need help, I really need support, I work for a not-for-profit, and, you know, my debt to income ratio is just not going the way I want it to, you would basically have to start over and pay for another 10 years, which is just crazy. I mean, why would you want to hold yourself to that? When you're at a not-for-profit, like, you're already doing your service to our community. Not to say that this waiver is the best thing to ever happen to student loan forgiveness. I mean, there is a lot to be said about the current program. There's a lot to consider. So you really need to weigh your pros and cons when you're doing this. I have been taking my time weighing my pros and cons because previously I never wanted to apply for the student loan forgiveness or the public service forgiveness program, because there's such low rates of loans actually being forgiven. And I'm not sure, you know, there are a lot of other ins and outs that we can go over if you really wanted to. Let us know in the comment box below if you really want to know, like, the nitty-gritty details of what it looks like after you consolidate. What happens if you don't fill out your public service loan form every year? How does income-driven payment plan work? Like, those are all things I went over in this phone call with this amazing lady. And it was really helpful, but it might be too in the weeds for this video. I don't know. Let us know in the comment box below if you really need that information, because I'm happy to give it to you. I've done my due diligence in trying to figure this out. And so we're just trying to help you out.
All right, loaners. Well, that is our short video. Once again, if you need any other of those links, check it down below. Also, make sure to subscribe because we are here for you every Monday.
Bye, loaners.
Bye, loaners.